Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to get sub 10 at SKEWB with Sarah's intermediate method. First off, you need to know how to do sledgehammer like this and hedge slammer like this. If you already know, skip to this time right now. If you don't know, here's a very quick tutorial. A normal sledgehammer goes like this. If you want to perform this algorithm faster, however, you're going to need to know some finger tricks. Let's assume we're performing the sledgehammer with white top, green front. First, put your left hand's thumb on the bottom of the cube. In this case, it would be yellow. Now put 2 fingers on the back and rest the rest of your fingers anywhere on the cube. Then you want to take your right hand thumb and put it on the front, and take the 2 first fingers of your hand and put it on top like this. Now when you're doing the algorithm, you kind of want to lift off these 2 fingers temporarily. You want to push down like this. Next, push forward. And now your hand is in this weird position, but we want to lift this back up. And finally, we twist back. Again, this would be something like this. Down, over, up, back. Faster, it would look like this. Now the opposite of a sledgehammer is known as a hedge slammer, and you also need to know how to do this. A hedge slammer goes like this. You want to put your 2 fingers of your left hand very similar to how you did with the sledgehammer, but with your right hand, you're going to put your thumb on top, and again, we're doing this white top, green front, thumb on top, and 2 fingers like this. Next, we want to pull over, pull down, and flick with your left index, and move it back up. This is a lot easier to execute, but you still need to make sure you can do it relatively fast. Faster, the hedge slammer would look like this. The method is relatively simple. First, we're going to make these 4 corners correctly matching onto this center. Next, we're going to be using one algorithm to orient all of the 4 yellow corners, as well as move the yellow center to its correct place. Finally, we're going to be using one more algorithm to permutate all 4 centers into their correct places. For the first layer, it's very important you know how to do it color neutral. However, for the sake of this tutorial, we're going to be using white. It's very similar if you use any other color, but just make sure you get your color patterns correct. Again, the first layer is kind of intuitive. Essentially, what we're going to be doing is just trying to move all of the corners into their correct place. However, for a few special cases, you may notice that one corner is flipped in its place. In this case, if it's facing towards the left of you, you want to move it to the right, and then perform a sledgehammer like this, without the final move. If the white piece is already facing towards your right, however, what you want to do is move it to your left and perform a hedge slammer like this, without the final move. And again, it solves the last corner. Again, this is all very intuitive, and it usually takes a little bit of discovering and practice to get it down. However, with color neutrality and just a little bit of understanding, the first layer should be pretty simple. Next, we want to be able to orient the corners and get the last center where it's supposed to go in one algorithm. I'm going to split this into a couple of sections. First of all, we're going to be doing this pie case where we have headlights here and these back corners are facing away from each other. Next, we're going to be doing a case that kind of looks like a diamond. We have 2 corners diagonal from each other solved and 2 more corners facing one direction diagonally. And finally, we have the case where all 4 corners are correct, but the center is not in the correct place. Keep in mind that all of these cases require some combination of a sledgehammer or a hedge slammer. Now let's start with the first pie case. We have the pie, as you can see here, with the center already solved. In this case, hold the headlights to your left and do a sledgehammer 2 times. 1, 2, and as you can see, it'll solve it. Next, we have the case where we have the headlights, but the center is towards the right of the headlights. In this case, hold the center towards you and execute a hedge slammer. Just like that. Now we have a similar case. We have the pie case, but the center is towards the left of the headlights. In this case, again, hold the center towards you and execute a sledgehammer. Now we have the case with the pie, but the center is either at the front of the pie or at the back of the pie. For both of these, it'll follow a similar pattern. So first I'll explain the pattern for one of them, and then I'll just simply show you how to apply the pattern for the second one. both of these, we want to turn the center towards the back. And now remember where the headlights are, because in one case they'll be at the back, in one case they'll be at the front, depending on the relative orientation of the headlights and the center. Now, after we have the center at the back, we want to do a sledgehammer. Now remember where the headlights were? We want to turn those headlights, or at least where they were, towards your right. Then we do another sledgehammer. Now we want to turn back to the original orientation and perform a hedge slammer. And that will solve it. Again, this is for the same case as before. We have the headlights and the center facing away from us. One sledgehammer, turn towards your right because the headlights are now where they would be on our right. Do another sledgehammer, turn back to the starting orientation, and do a hedge slammer. Now we have the opposite case. We have the headlights here, but the center back there. Again, we're going to perform a sledgehammer with the center towards our back. We're going to turn where the headlights were to our right, just like this, perform another sledgehammer, and finally turn back to the original orientation and perform a hedge slammer. Just like that, we have the corners in the center solved. Now let's talk about the ones that look like a diamond. For the case where we have the diamond and the center is already at the top, what we're going to be doing is do a sledgehammer with one of the corners facing you and this slanting diagonally like this. Do a sledgehammer, turn towards your right, do a sledgehammer again, turn towards your right again, and do a hedge slammer. Next, we have a similar case, except the center is actually towards the left side, which means it's connected to the left corner. In this case, what we want to do is put the center towards our left. Next, do a sledgehammer, turn towards your left again, and do a sledgehammer. This case is also very similar to the one we just had, except this time the center is on your right side. This is still very similar. We want to put this center towards our left. And now we do sledgehammer, turn this way, and do a hedge slammer. Now we have the case where we have the diamond and the center is at the back relative to this corner here. In this case, put the center on your right. Now do a sledgehammer, turn this way, and do a hedge slammer. For the last case, the center is towards the left of this corner. So instead of being here, it is now here. This is still very similar. We want to hold it towards our right, except we're going to do a sledgehammer, turn towards this way, and do another sledgehammer. And with that, we have it solved. Next, we're going to be going over the case where all of the four corners are correct, but the center is not in its correct place. However, the algorithm we use to do that is the same algorithm that we call a U-perm. So I'm going to tell you what a U-perm is right now because we're going to actually use it 2 times in the future. The U-perm goes like this. Let's assume we want to swap this center with this center with this center, which is what a U-perm does. We're going to first do a sledgehammer on these 2 centers. Next, we're going to perform a Y2 rotation and do another sledgehammer. As you can see, we have successfully swapped these 3. And notice that the center that was originally at the back now goes to the top. With this knowledge, we can now solve the last center. What this means is that if we have the 4 corners correct but one center not correct, we always put that center that we want, which is yellow in this case, towards our back. And now we want to execute a U-perm on the 2 remaining centers on the same side, just like this. Sledgehammer, Y2, sledgehammer. And just like that, we have our yellow center back at the top. After you have that alg set, we're now going to learn how to swap the remaining 4 centers into their correct position. As you may remember, this is a U-perm. And when you're actually executing the U-perm, you want to put the center with the opposite to the corners in front towards you. And in this case, we're going to execute that same U-perm algorithm that we just did. Sledgehammer, Y2, sledgehammer. Next, we have an H-perm. In an H-perm, opposite centers are going to swap. This goes here, and the same thing with the blue and the green. With an H-perm, the way you do it is first do a sledgehammer on any of the sides. Just make sure that the yellow is on top, just like this. Next, we're going to do a Y2 rotation and do a hedge slammer. Finally, do another Y2 rotation and do a sledgehammer. Just like that, we have the H-perm solved. Finally, we have the Z-perm, which involves 2 pairs of adjacent centers swapping. Now, if you know how to read alg notation, the algorithm will be up there. However, if you don't know how to read it, then simply follow along with my moves, because simply, it's sometimes easier to memorize with muscle memory. In order to execute this algorithm, I want you to hold it at a position where you can see all 4 of the side colors. And do this. You want to hold it with these 2 fingers on both of these centers. And next, you want to put your right thumb on the bottom, 2 fingers like this. It's kind of a precarious position, but sometimes you have to take risks. While holding these 2 fingers steady, you want to lift this up, pull this up, and flick back with this finger. Next, you want to pull this down, use your middle finger to pull this part down, kind of regrip, pull down, pull over, pull up, pull over. And that's the Z perm. Altogether, it looks something like this. That's all of the algorithms in Sarah's intermediate method. I know that's a lot of algorithms, but it's kind of easy to memorize because they all basically have to do with a hedge slammer and a sledgehammer. With that, if you have any questions, let me know down in the comments section. Hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye!